Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. So I'm super sad that this obviously got pretty crunched up because I actually think this is a beautiful poster, and I got it at Ace Comic Con, and it had to travel with me, and unfortunately, this is how it came back. But look how gorgeous this is. So, well, we have a Maleficent sequel and yet another Disney live action fairy tale in 2019. Now, I thought the first Maleficent was a mixed bag. I lean a little bit more on the negative side, but I didn't completely hate it. However, I was just sad that we didn't get a true villain story with Maleficent. We got a completely new story that didn't really resemble the original take that it was being based off of. Add to that the weird, like, rape storyline, and I was like, okay, I don't know about all this. However, I was still on board with a sequel. I thought enough was good in that first film to warrant more of a story being told. And then we got that first trailer, and I loved it. I thought it looked so good. And then the second trailer looked really good up until that end, and then it caught me. And with the big reveal, I was a little bit taken aback. I was heading in nervously optimistic that this would be up my alley, but I was really scared they were going to go in a crazy direction that I just didn't enjoy. And in the end, I have to say, it mostly stayed right in my alley, and I had a good time with Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. So let's go ahead and talk about the positives first. Well, the biggest positive of this film was also the biggest positive of the first film, and that is Angelina Jolie as Maleficent. She is so good in this movie. What a commanding performance. She's wonderful through and through. She embodies this character and creates a Maleficent all of her own, and it works amazingly well. This movie also allows her to really get into some deeper levels within her acting. And she does a great job of selling that without over dramatically acting and getting crazy. No, it's all sold like right in here, and she delivers everything. When she has to do her physical moves, it's fantastic. She is amazing to watch in this movie. You know who else is amazing? Michelle Pfeiffer. Yes. Oh, I thought she was so good. And this is like what I want from a fairy tale live action Disney villain, is someone who's here to chew up that scenery when she's on screen, really give you the type of villain you're looking for, and deliver. And Michelle Pfeiffer does all of that, and her performance is so good. And when these two share the screen together and we get a little glimpse of that scene in the palace in the trailer, oh, it's amazing. I also think that Elle Fanning does a really solid job in the role of Aurora. She's given a larger array, I'd say, in this film than she was in Maleficent, and she delivers on all fronts. This time around, we have Harris Dickinson in the role of Prince Philip, and I thought he was fine. It's a little bit distracting, not having Brenton Thwaites come back for that, but Prince Philip was such a tiny role in the first one. And this time around, I particularly loved Diaval, played by Sam Riley. I liked what they did with his character. I thought it really, really worked out. He was fine in the first film as well, but he really shined in this one, and I enjoyed the character and his performance as well. Plus, we have other all-stars in here with Chiwetel Ejiofor and Ed Skrein, both of which who do a serviceable job, though play a much smaller role. But honestly, all of the acting really fit into this world. They did a great job bringing these characters to life and selling us on this new fantastical setting we've been placed into. Speaking of that fantastical setting, this movie is gorgeous. It is breathtaking. The visuals in this film are pretty top notch, almost across the board, but particularly when it comes to world building and creature design, it is just stunning, and the CGI work is really, really good. And in saying that, I'm a big fantasy nerd. I typically just enjoy fantasy. I like being involved in these crazy, big, cool worlds, And this movie felt much more like a fantasy to me. We really delve into more mythology of this world we've inhabited. We get to see more creatures. We get to go into more magic, and I loved all of it. It also plays out much like a fantasy with the heroes, the villains, the setup, all of that plays out very fantasy like. But I like fantasy, so that was definitely a positive for me. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about these costumes because they are amazing. Oh my gosh. All of Maleficent's different costumes are beautiful. Everything Michelle Pfeiffer wears is amazing, particularly that last dress that she's in is just jaw dropping. It's so good. But everybody's costume work is stellar in this movie. The makeup is so good and so natural and dramatic. I mean, the makeup work is amazing. The hair work is amazing. So kudos to the hair and costuming and makeup departments because they killed it in this movie. Some of the best work in each of those categories I've seen all year long. And it definitely kept my interest. I think it spurts in the battle heavy or action scenes, the dramatic moments, just enough that you don't get tired of them, but also enough to break up a little bit slower pace of a story. And the story worked for me too. I actually really liked the anti violence, anti war message of the film, the message about being able to change and how kindness is the answer. All of that really worked for me. And I think since I knew what to expect this time around, I was much more happy and much more content with the character that Maleficent is in this universe. I wasn't expecting the iconic villain that I had come to know and love all of this time. I expected this newer version, and I think that definitely helped in the case of the sequel. So then, what didn't work so well when it comes to the second Maleficent film? Well, the opening. I think the very start of the film is a little bit like, what am I watching? I think the very start is okay, but everything leading up to Maleficent going to the castle is so hokey and so like out of place. This movie does a much better job, I'd say, than the first in keeping that kind of darker tone. There are stakes, there is darkness, there is a more grown feeling, if you will. Except for like the first half of the opening act is so hokey and cartoony. The fairies are back and they are still horrendous looking. I mean, it's really, I don't think it's improved upon the first movie with these weird human heads on these little fairy bodies. I mean, it's terrible. It looks scary, honestly. But they're hokey and they're all over the place, and most of the like really childlike stuff that happens with the Moor folk, it didn't do it for me. Also, this score didn't do it for me. It is way bouncy, cartoony. It just it cheapened my experience, honestly. I would have much preferred a more sophisticated type of score that, accompanied what was happening instead of outwardly like trying to lead you to go with the hokey feels of whatever's going on. It just didn't work, and it honestly cheapened a lot of the moments in the movie itself. And then when it comes to the Fae storyline, the Dark Fae, which is kind of Maleficent's heritage, if you will, I didn't like the subplot, honestly. It worked okay, but it just opened more doors than it had time to even address. It created more questions. It had answers. At the very least, I wish we had just like dulled it down rather than open that door and not really explain Maleficent or her connection with her backstory at all. They just like jump right over that to get to what they need to go to. So the Dark Fae storyline, it was pretty weak for me overall. Especially took up a lot of our Maleficent time that I wish we would have had elsewhere. And then the story itself is pretty generic fantasy, as I said before. Don't come in expecting a whole lot of nuance. Don't come in expecting a deeper level story with deep themes or a lot of hidden messages. They don't even wink at the camera. They just like shove right into the camera when they want you to notice something or get the reference, and then they'll jump into a hokey moment. So the screenplay and the script, meh, could have been better. But overall, I had fun with the Maleficent Mistress of Evil. The world building is fantastic, the costume work is amazing, and honestly, it's worth price of admission alone for Jolie and Pfeiffer's performances because they're just so good in this movie. So if you enjoyed the first film, I definitely think this is a full price ticket. I honestly think you'll love this film as well. If you didn't like the first film, I would still give this a matinee. I think it improves on most everything the first lays down. And if you're going to see it at all, these visuals and this world really does warrant seeing it on a big screen. So give it a matinee. If you like fantasy, you'll definitely have a good time. So that is my review of Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Maleficent, Mistress of Evil? Or have you already seen it? If you have, let me know your thoughts either in the comment section down below or hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!